Next photo point is the Wexford photo point, which is this ruins of a church here in Banno. So this is the Banno church ruins, and the history of this is that it's at this spot that the Normans first invaded Ireland from across the water in Britain in 1169 and settled here, building a town and this church. The church is all that remains of the Norman town, because in the 14th century the silt in the bay rose and it took the town sank into the silt out there somewhere, and the only reason that the church survived was because it was 30 feet above sea level. So this is where the British rule of Ireland began, way back in 1169, and started 800 years of oppression for the Irish, where they tried to get rid of our language and our traditions, and it still has ramifications in the north of Ireland to this very day. Out there is the Salty Islands out in the bay, and in 1943 they were bought by Michael Neal and his wife Anne, and in 1956 they declared themselves the Prince and Princess of the Salty Islands, and their crypt is behind me here in the graveyard. We'll have a look at that. Their son Michael Jr. is the new prince that's on the island out there now. Beautiful spot though. Shame about the history. An old font. On concrete coffin, the lid off it, body snatchers. Here's the crypt. Michael, Prince of the Salties, 1911 to 1998, Anne, Princess of the Salties, 1911 to 1936, Citizens of the World. All the princesses born and died since. This wall was built 1980 by John Neal and Prince Michael Salties in memory of their father and mother who rest in the cemetery. One thing that hasn't been lost on the Irish, I'm glad to say, is the gift of eloquence. Anyway, onward. In County Kilkenny, going to the Tide War Monument in here in Carrickshock, and here it is. The history of this monument is that during 1830 to 1836, the ruling British here in Ireland enforced tax on the Irish for to upkeep the Protestant church, even though most of the population here were Catholic. And between 1830 and 1836 there was a range of civil disobediences against the tithes or the taxes that were imposed on them. And in this area there was big walls on either side of this laneway, and a Mr. Butler, who was the man collecting the taxes, arrived to get the taxes off the local farmers, who descended on them. Mr. Butler had 38 armed constables with him, and about 1,000 of the locals here arrived in with pickaxes and stones and rocks and things, and surrounded Mr. Butler and the 38 constables, and a big crush ensued. They tried to grab Mr. Butler, but he was pulled back in, and then he was hit with a rock into the head. And when that happened, the captain of the constables ordered to open fire, but because there was such a crush, they only hit 3 people. Well, they killed 3 people, but they couldn't reload. But when they fired the shots, the locals set upon them, and 13 constables were killed, and also Mr. Butler, the man trying to collect the taxes. So that's what happened here. What's unusual about that is not so much that there was a civil disobedience, because that was happening all over Ireland at the time, but the actual fact that 13 constables were killed, and of course the tax collector made it very unusual, as it would normally be just the protesters who were killed because they were unarmed. So this monument is, as I said here, the 175th anniversary of the Battle of Carrickshock. We remember those with esteem and gratitude, those men and women who took a stand against injustice and fought here to vindicate their rights. There should be a plaque with the names of the men who were killed. It's in Irish on that side, so I'll go to the English side for you. Erected in everlasting memory of James Tracy, Patrick Power, Thomas Phelan, and their faithful comrade heroes who fell and suffered on this spot in the ever memorable and decisive tide fight of Carrickshock on Wednesday the 14th of December 1831. True they proved even unto death. Hard to imagine such tragedy in such a beautiful place. This is Carrickshock Tide War Monument.